I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car. Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for the 2010 romance drama film Blue Valentine, directed by Derek Cianfrance and starring Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams. So, what is the plot of Blue Valentine? Well, this young working class married couple named Dean Perea and Cindy Hella Perea, they have this young daughter named Frankie. Dean works as a house painter, and Cindy is a nurse at a medical clinic. Despite their relatively tender ages, they've both been ravaged by the life they've eked out together and by the experiences they've had leading to their marriage. Dean, a high school dropout, comes from a broken home and never really had a mother figure. He never imagined getting married or having a family despite falling in love with Cindy at first sight. He has no professional ambition beyond his current work, which he enjoys because he feels he can drink a beer at 8 a.m. and it won't affect his work. But Cindy believes he has so much more potential in life. Cindy, on the other end, comes from a dysfunctional family. Her parents didn't set an example of a harmonious married or family life. One of her previous relation partners, Bobby, has a profound effect on many aspects of her marriage to Dean. Dean and Cindy then head off on an overnight getaway together without Frankie by the time we're on the present day. This is set between the past how they met and the present day when their marriage is starting to turn to shit, trying to seek a clear picture of whether their marriage can survive its many issues. So, usually I say the production first, and then I say when it was released, but this time around I'm going to say the release first. Once Blue Valentine was officially shot and completed, the film would premiere a competition on 26 Sundance Film Festival, and got screened on the Certain Regard section at the 2010 Cannes Film Festival, premiered at Toronto International Film Festival on September 15th, 2010, then in Australia, Palace Films would release the film on December 26, 2010, but when it came to the United States, it would be distributed by the now defunct Weinstein Company as a limited release on December 29th, 2010, 2 days before New Year's Eve, and the beginning of 2011. Yeah, and when it released, the movie got critical acclaim, and Michelle Williams was nominated for Best Actress at the Academy Awards, and was nominated for a Golden Globe, and also Golden Globe Award. Ryan Gosling received a nomination at the Golden Globe Awards for Best Actor. Now, Blue Valentine has a pretty interesting production history and how it got made. Well, when this got made, the script was actually written in 2002, about 7 years before the movie even released. Michelle Williams at the time was 21 years old when she received the script. Gosling even committed to the production 4 years later. But filming did not actually begin until 2009, when Michelle Williams turned 28, as did Gosling. An ode to Derek Cianfrance's inability to find financing, though. The director was unable to film the young and older scenes several years apart because originally he wanted to do that, but because of the lack of money, he wasn't able to. And the film was to be shot in California, but production had to move to Brooklyn in Pennsylvania because Michelle Williams at the time was engaged to actor Heath Ledger when they first met when they both worked on Brokeback Mountain together in 2005. And that was the same time when the sad, tragic death of Heath Ledger had happened. The previous year before this could be filmed. So Michelle Williams wanted to stay close to her Brooklyn home to take care of her and Heath Ledger's daughter, Matilda. And according to the director, Accordingly, the director chose Hunsdale due to its proximity to Brooklyn. Then filming began on May 12, 2009. When Gosling and Williams did their scenes, they improvised a lot of their dialogue. The scene in which their characters wandered through New York together was unscripted. Like, the actors had worked together in 2003, but they didn't share scenes in the United States of Leland. They actually got to know each other during its filming. And before filming the marriage dissolution between the main characters, Gosling and Williams had to prepare for all those scenes by renting a home together, bringing their own clothing and belongings, buying groceries with a budget based on their characters' incomes from their jobs, filming home movies, taking a family portrait at a local Sears with the actress who played their daughter, and having to stage out arguments. Their city friends visited the actors and assisted them in building tension while remaining in character. One night, he had told Gosling to go into Williams' bedroom, try and make love to her. Gosling would have to sound rejected and end up sleeping on the couch. Yeah, that's one of the interesting things about this movie is almost a lot of this was not scripted at all. So it's pretty nice how the director really shot this film and put a lot of passion into this project. Now, as for my reaction to the movie, I can definitely say that I do love this movie because it's well acted, it's well improvised, it's well shot, it's pretty well thought out. But it's not a movie I can say I would really be crazy to rewatch. Not because I think it's bad, not because I think it's mediocre, because it is depressing as fuck from start to finish. Hell, the movie even kicks off on a very depressing note, with literally the main character's daughter wondering where their dog is. Yeah, that right there literally tells you this is not going to be a happy movie as soon as you start it. So, be prepared for that if you even think of watching this. This movie is a movie that shows you the reality of relationships and why they're not like some cheesy made up movie after a while. Like, at first it seems happy, but sometimes marriages can eventually turn to shit. And this movie's also why I don't really try to pursue relationships either. Now, Ryan Gosling, on the other hand, is one of my all-time favorite actors. I love this guy in movies like Drive, loved him in Blade Runner 2049, loved him in last year's The Fall Guy. Last year's The Fall Guy is even proof that this guy even can do comedic performances. As much as I'm not a fan of Barbie, he was the one thing I like about that film. He's pretty much Ken is literally the character in the movie that really actually made the movie watchable. If it had not been for his performance as Ken, I'd give the movie a lower score. I give it a 6 because he's the best part of that film. The movie should have been about him a little. I would have rather the movie have been about Ken a little bit more. Been more focused on Ken instead of the America Ferrera's character that I barely cared about. Upon first watching this film back in 2018, I came away from it like a little more. Definitely can see why some people are more wary of love. And when you look at the character of Dean and wonder what it is that he did wrong, like he fell for this woman played by Michelle Williams, stepped up to care for her and her yet unborn daughter that was caused by her asshole ex-boyfriend, and shifted his life to focus entirely on being a good husband and father. He was charming his interactions with his daughter and was loving towards his wife, enduring more rejection from her than most could, and trying to breathe love back into their relationship that's already failing. And even his outbursts seemed attempts to give her what she wanted, so some would probably talk about this being a story of falling in and out of love, but the thing is, whenever I think of this film, I don't think Cindy really romantically loved Dean. The reason why she got with him was because she was desperate, pregnant now, and about to face life as a young parent, and Dean was there to hold her. As his mother, here's the thing though, some people say most of the movie is kind of Dean's fault. Personally, as much as I would think there's not really a side to pick, sometimes both of them are kind of at fault. I think the one that is more at fault for some of this stuff that happens in the movie is entirely Cindy. A lot of times, to be fair, there's times when throughout the movie she can be a little bit selfish at times and kind of a bit unlikable. Obviously, I guess she's obviously not intentionally being manipulative, but she seemed pretty reluctant to tell Dean about that she was pregnant around the time she found out. To her secret thing around her job offer or the counter at the grocery store, like they're kind of like hinted little lies and just trying to hide the truth. There yeah, there's times when Dean's not really any better, but honestly, that's kind of a film where they're kind of both in the wrong. Inside, it's maybe up to the viewer to decide who's more at fault. Like, this was a movie Derek Cianfrance was developing for nearly 12 years. Not just as a complex portrait of two main characters, but profoundly honest because it examines intimacy from every angle. And emotionally and physically, the romantic story of Dean and Cindy flashes backward in beautifully edited matching shots that shows us how they first met, the first bit of affection, and of course, the frustration in the present day scenes when it shows their marriage is not working. Cianfrance doesn't try to force his audience to choose sides, but honestly, though, it's kind of easier for me to kind of side with Dean in a way. There's some not likable things about him, but I was kind of more on Dean's side in this movie a little more than Cindy's. That's one of the more compelling things about this film. Like both characters kind of have their flaws, and there's times when I guess I can side with Cindy at times, like whenever Dean's kind of being a little immature at times, and the drinking problem, I can definitely see her annoyance on with that bit. But to be fair, like this guy's at least kind of trying to save a relationship, and it's just not working out. So, but like Gosling and Michelle Williams do deliver superb performances, and each actually did really improvise their stuff very well. Right there. And like the camera work and art direction is pretty effective. And it really sets, especially set primarily around the 4th of July weekend, where in the very ending you see flags, fireworks, like in red, white, and blue, and it's really conveyed with the lighting cautious throughout the film and continues throughout the credits. Like the fireworks serve as this reminder of the whole power and fracture remnants of this brief illumination even. And so how do we start off the film? Well, this film is presented in non-linear. It jumps back and forth between the beginning of Dean and Cindy's relationship, and it cuts back to how it's really starting to affect them in the present day. So we start off during the present day where their daughter Frankie, who is now 5 years old, it's been 5 years since they first met. She's looking for her dog. That basically tells you that this is not going to be a happy story. In the very first scene, she wakes up her dad, Dean. They cannot find the family dog, and they look for her throughout the Pennsylvania family home. And Dean reassures Frankie that they'll find her. There's this gate lead outside that appears to be left open, and it can be implied that their dog ran off. So Dean and Frankie wake up Cindy, who's exhausted and annoyed by this. And then reminds the two that Frankie has to get ready for school and cannot be late. So Cindy gets Frankie dressed, gives her oatmeal for breakfast, emails some missing dog flyers, are getting ready for her job. Dean, on the other hand, is too focused on making Frankie laugh and kind of really getting ready, and then rebuffs the oatmeal breakfast that Cindy made for Frankie. How all this goes is Frankie doesn't like the oatmeal, even though Cindy actually made it right by putting water in, since it's instant oatmeal, but Dean takes out the raisins, has her eat the raisins with their mouths on the table, and then, of course, then we see a bit of Dean's life. Like, we see Cindy's life first. Cindy's a nurse. How Dean's job goes. He's a house painter. Well, it's not the first job he has. This is the present day job he has. The present day, he's painting houses. And, of course, drinks alcohol and smokes cigarettes in the morning. That part I could take out, but painting houses actually is an honest job. It actually is kind of does actually make you a good profit. Painting houses actually does make you a good profit. So it's this movie does kind of treat it as kind of a bad thing, just because with the smoking and drinking in the morning stuff, yeah, but painting houses is still a pretty simple job, and it actually does pay well. It's a hard working one. Like, Blue Valentine is a simple and heartbreaking story. It's got magnificent screenplay, performances, and soundtrack that make the difference. The romance is developed in two periods, the beginning and the end of the relationship. A couple that does not really talk anymore to each other. The relationship is disclosed, and the film follows two timelines, and it cuts them to perfection. You have the present day, which things are not going too well in the past, whereas how this all kind of started, how these two came across each other. The audience is really left putting the pieces together and wondering how they all got there. The film doesn't really answer many questions because there's not really much of a straight answer, but Derek Cianfrance really films this story as a documentary too. Like, the camera really captures the looks, gestures, line of dialogue, as if it happened to be there by accident or something, and crucial lines are delivered as the leads turn their back to the camera or even off screen. There is a couple of like intimate moments in the film too, and why they're pretty raw, like, but they're not distasteful or they're not pretentious or gratuitous. Like, you want to know the weirdest thing about this? Apparently the MPAA thought, what? There's boobs? That's X-rated. We need to slap this with an NC-17. Because this looks pornographic. Really? This got rated NC-17? What? I didn't see anything NC-17 about this. Yeah, there's a couple boob shots for a few seconds, but how was any of this NC-17? I didn't see anything NC-17 about this. If you're watching a romance R-rated film, you're gonna see shots of boobs. Like, oh my god, like, just imagine this. Hey, you public can't watch Friday the 13th because it's got a bunch of boobs in it, so we have to slap X on those. It'd be like doing that. It's ridiculous. It's like, my god. But whatever, man. Like, let's get back to the review. What really brings the acting to film, like, this probably is Williams' best performance of her career, but the one that does stand out the most is Ryan Gosling. Now, I do prefer his performances and stuff like Drive and Blade Runner 2049, but I would probably have to put this third place for how I'd rank his performances. Ryan Gosling really portrays a character full of imperfections and faults, and really does make him a pretty decent person at times. Like, there's some problems with him I have. Like, he's not a perfect character, but I'll get more into why he's not really a perfect character later. So, after our opening scene, we now see Cindy's job working as a nurse, where we meet her boss, who is offering her to join him at this new clinic in another city in the near future. But it is kind of hinted this guy is a bit of a creep and a bit of a POS. There's more on that later. And of course, Dean, we need to see Dean. He's driving around while smoking and drinking. He paints houses for work. And then, of course, he goes to an event that's going on at Frankie's school. And once Cindy's on her way there, she finds their dog dead by a roadside. But then arrives late to the event, and Dean is already there. She tells Dean that what she found her dog, and blames her for leaving the gate open. And she suddenly just breaks down in tears. And then when they get home, Dean breaks down and Cindy comforts him. And then, of course, Dean decides that they should probably try to save their marriage by going to this cheap motel that has these, like, little themed rooms or some, like, little themed rooms to try to save their relationship for one night. So they drop Frankie off at Cindy's dad's place, but Dean does not enter the home is because he's smoking again, and Cindy's father has an oxygen tank, so he can't go near it. So, while Cindy's driving to the motel, she stops by a liquor store to get some liquor for the night, then has an awkward encounter with her ex Bobby, and that causes an argument in the car between her and Dean. Then we see our bit of first flashbacks, or how they all met, where we first meet Dean. Back then, Dean was this hopeless romantic high school dropout. He applies for a movie company in Brooklyn. Cindy, on the other hand, was once an inspired doctor studying pre-med while living with her parents and caring for her grandmother in Pennsylvania. Her parents have this volatile marriage, with her dad being verbally abusive towards her mother, and she's dating a fellow student named Bobby, her ex that we saw at the liquor store, and then one day the two have intercourse, where he ejaculates inside her without her consent. He brings her roses, but then gets mad when she does not accept his apology, which does make a lot of sense. And Cindy shuts him out, and they break up. So it's pretty much the shifting back and forth in time between the courtship and the dissolution of their marriage provides this opportunity for the actors to show the subtle and often visceral ways the characters had changed over the course of 6 years when they were married together. The scenes of their younger selves are filled with romance and welcome humor, and amidst their sometimes bleakness, and it's kind of painful moving to watch the motel scenes where the pair loses the last remaining threads holding them together. Gosling and Williams really improvise much of their dialogue, especially in the courtship scenes when they first met, and the way they calibrate their performances with this rhythm and texture that really makes this perpetual volatile relationship feel real and heartbreaking. What started off from good intentions, with the promise of the stable, fulfilling life ahead, ends up becoming sour, puts pressures on both of them and on the relationship, and Dean and Cindy have to both look for and want different things from the relationship, and it really suffers from their lack of honesty and communication. It leads you to the questions. What really makes a good relationship? What makes a good husband? Or is being there enough? The movie provides you with all sorts of those questions. And impressed her by expectations of many things, like these two characters really drift apart in their growing loveless marriage. That they kind of got forced to have to... That they basically got forced into. For unexplained... For many crazy reasons. Where when it comes to Cindy, she expects and sees one set of things for the relationship. Dean expects and sees another. Dean speaks about the one time like Cindy speaks to him as in arguments and never really gets any love back from her, and thinks that he deserves of being a good father in a stable job, but Cindy complains of him not achieving his potential and setting for her. So in a way, this kind of shows that Dean is talented, never acts on it though. Cindy tries to do her best under the circumstances, and so we get to our hotel, and the room they got. When they're booking the room, they had two options. They had Cupid's Cove, or they had a future room. So Dean makes a choice of the future room, and the future room is this little spaceship themed motel room with a moving bed and spaceship control panels and blue colored lights. As cool of a room as that sounds, it seems pretty claustrophobic because there is no windows. So it seems hard to tell what kind of time of day it is, and it looks like a pretty cramped place, to be fair. As cool of a room that sounds, I don't think I would go to a place like that if there was no windows. I'd get the fuck out of there quick. I would not stay in a hotel room with no windows. That place looks fucking cramped. I mean, it's a cool themed room though, and it's a cool bed that moves, but they get there and Dean's obviously excited about it, and even does this funny laugh, it's how they laugh in the future. Ah! 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 Which well, man, that's kind of funny, though. That's kind of funny. I'm pretty sure people in the future don't laugh like that. That's pretty funny, though. That'd be funny if there was a Star Trek episode or a Star Wars moment where all the people in the galaxy laugh like that. Matt, can you imagine if that happened in either of those? But then, of course, there's a shower bit. Dean tries to seduce Cindy in the shower, but that doesn't work. Dean and Cindy then start to drink alcohol, and Cindy is overwhelmed by his advances and frustrated with this lack of ambition, and questions Dean while they're drunk, and it leads to another outburst, and Dean continues advances, and eventually Cindy gives in, but then Cindy's disappointed when Dean asks if she wants to have another child with him. It seems at first, it does seem like things are starting to improve during this bit. It seems like things are kind of starting to kind of get on track, but then, of course, when Dean asks if they want to have another child, everything kind of just goes to shit again. and their argument becomes explosive again, and then locks the door between them, and leaving him out, and just leaves him to sleep outside the bedroom. Then, the next morning around 6 a.m., Cindy gets called in for work to start at 9 a.m. She takes a car, leaves a note for Dean. Then, when she arrives at the clinic, you find out that this boss of hers is indeed a creeper, because she recommended Cindy move into an apartment near the new clinic and not move her family at all, and suggesting they could keep each other company. And that obviously upsets Cindy. So yeah, this boss is a POS. He didn't really want this whole promotion. He clearly just wanted to try to get to hook up with her, because he clearly found her attractive. Then you see more flashbacks that reveal that while Dean was moving furniture to a nursing home in Pennsylvania for an old guy, this is how he met Cindy, who was visiting her grandmother there. And of course, pushy with his advances, he gives her his work number, but she never calls. Then they meet again on a bus and begin seeing each other after he tries to find her at the nursing home again, only to find that the old man he moved there has now died and passed away. So, however, her ex, Bobby, discovers the relationship, and Bobby violently assaults Dean while he's at work. Then, Cindy introduced Dean to her family. Then, afterwards, she finds out she's pregnant and tells Dean that she's not sure who the father is, and that he's unlikely to be the father, but Dean questions her on what she's going to do. She ends up opting for an abortion, but changes her mind during the procedure, decides not to go through with it. While Dean was waiting for her outside, then Dean comforts her and assures that they can raise the child together. So, that's how Cindy and Dean get married out of justice of the peace. And that's how they became a couple. That was how they met. So, you see, kind of see the typical romantic movie plot in the flashback scenes. One of my problems with the little rom-com or romance genre is kind of because they don't really show examples of marriages that are both realistic and positive, in a way. They kind of portray them as a little cliche to think and it kind of would make people think that romances are all fairy tales. No. This movie actually shows that sometimes it's not always a happily ever after, and sometimes the aftermath is not always pleasant. So this movie's a little more honest with that stuff. And of course, the script does create empathy and sympathy for our two characters. There's not really one who's a victim or enemy throughout. There's both sides are in the right, both sides are in the wrong. Right there, and the death of Gosling Williams' performances doesn't allow partially either. Gosling certainly gives the more external performance with a quick temper and a deep love that really forces out his fragility. Cindy, on the other hand, Williams manages to convey it all beautifully, and Derek C. and France effectively balances these two acting forces, entering their primes, lets you feel the relationship and their story. And of course, it does manage to generate empathy, and it really proves her to be a valuable filmmaking skill. Derek Cianfrance wields it properly and effectively in a film with just a few key events, capable of commanding the viewer's attention otherwise. And a gripping scene occurs when Sidney makes a determination to have her pregnancy aborted, but the doctor describes what he's doing in vivid detail. It can't help but enter the mind of Cindy as she wrestles with whether she can go through with the procedure or not. It's really potent stuff, no matter whose side you're on in the film. So, now we get on with the finale, where Dean wakes up back at the motel alone. He's annoyed when he wakes up and when he sees a note. But then he gets a phone. Obviously, a staff phones him. From what we see, he gets a phone call. It's a staff telling him that his time there is up and it's time for him to pack up the hotel and leave. So the cleaning crew can come in and clean the place up for the next people to stay there. So he shows up drunk at the clinic after taking a bus there, and Dean forces his way in while yelling at Cindy, follows her room to room, and the clinic receptionist attempts to intervene, but it does not work. Then they have a heated argument where pretty much Cindy tells him that she's out of love for him, she's got nothing left for him now. Then her boss intervenes, and here's a commotion. But then, of course, obviously, this bit I can kind of see where Dean is coming from, even if maybe an overreaction or not, but I can kind of see why he'd be pissed to see this guy, and angrily asks if he's been emailing his wife because we found out that this boss is a creeper and pretty much just told Cindy to just move out away from her family to come live near him instead, like clearly not caring that she's married at all, and just wanted her for himself. So I can definitely see why Dean punched him in the face. To be fair, like, I was kind of on Dean's side in that moment, and why he'd be angry to see this guy. But of course, even though this is technically just Dean, though, her boss then fires Cindy clearly because she refused to move near him. So pretty much he pretty much wrongfully fires Cindy just because of what Dean did. Like, what Dean did was kind of reasonable, though. You were kind of trying to hit on this girl who's married. Can see why he got punched. And he threatens to call the cops on Dean for what? Yeah, obviously because he punched you, but you're technically hitting on a married girl, dude. And so he kicks them both out. And then on their way out, Cindy is furious and yells she wants a divorce. And then not Cindy. Dean then immediately stops walking. And now kind of realizes his fuck ups right there, just freezes for a moment, throws away his wedding ring, but then on their way back, like, he immediately gets out of the car and starts looking for it, and Cindy actually aids him in helping look for it. It's like, right there, so in a way, like, well, while she did demand a divorce, she then sees exactly what he's trying to do when looking for that ring and actually does help him look for it. So maybe there's still some glimmer, like a little bit right there, still looking for their ring. Then they get to her parents' house when they're trying to go pick up their daughter. And right there, like, Ryan Gosling gives a very heartfelt, tear-jerking performance. Like, where you really do buy the tears in his character, and the tearful voice he gives in his performance, where he's tearfully pleading with an upset Cindy to give the marriage another chance for Frankie. But Cindy doesn't want Frankie to grow up with parents who despise one another. Pretty much like, we're not perfect together. We cannot be like this. We cannot let our daughter grow up like this. Like, but we have to think of our daughter. Like, you said for better or worse. Like, you've said that. And so you kind of do buy the tears in her performances in this bit. Right there, though. When Dean reminding Cindy of the vows, they do hug, but she pulls away. And it's in a way where, as much as when she earlier said she wanted a divorce, like, but here, she's saying he's just got to give her some space. And Dean clearly realizes that he can't stay with them now. It is kind of over. So this is it. There's no other hope to save the relationship. So he leaves the house. But Frankie runs after him, begs him to stay. He tells her, no, you got to go back to your mother. And so her daughter's like, no, don't go. Don't go, come back. Alright? So he tricks her to return to Cindy through a race. So, want to race to your mom? Go, you get a head start. And so he then continues walking away. But from what we can see from the whole shot of him walking away, as Cindy picks up her daughter, the daughter can clearly see him walking away, and then starts sobbing. Right there, and honestly, that is a very heartbreaking moment. Heartbreaking moment right there. Like, this girl's now gonna grow up without her dad, and she's gonna grow up in a broken home like Dean did, and so Dean and Cindy just go back into the house, and no. Cindy and her daughter go back into her father's house, and Dean just walks away into the whole crowd that's celebrating the 4th of July while this is all going on, and the movie's over. That's how it ends. Like, Dean realizes his relationship is over. He can't stay with them. Right now, it's the end of their relationship. He's not even trying to make his daughter laugh when she tries to stop him. Like, he's telling her that she can't stay with him. She has to stay with her mom. That's who she belongs with. Has her fakes this race to get her to go back to her mom. And the last shot he's seen is Dean walking away into the crowd. That's excitedly celebrating 4th of July. Like, The neighbors are all having this fun time watching fireworks and celebrating 4th of July. Cindy's holding her daughter, who we can see like her daughter's in her mom's arms crying her eyes out that her dad is leaving them. And even though Cindy has divorced Dean at this rate, she still comforts her daughter in those moments, and they go back into her father's house. This ending scene is well shot with the fireworks. Like, these fireworks really symbolize like this. It's the end of their relationship. It's blown up, gone. And these fireworks even continue to the credits with photos of them back when they loved each other. And then, although there is some that could interpret the ending in their own ways, like some interpret the ending as more ambiguous. Maybe he's just taking a break for her for a while to set things right. And maybe there's a bit of chance. Some say maybe there's a chance they will get back together again when the time is right, when he's gotten his life back together. Some may think it's not too hopeless of an ending from their perspective. But me personally, as much as I would love to think that, I personally think this is really them splitting up for good. I don't think there's really much fixing of this. Like, maybe there is, but I don't think it's going to be easy. It's probably going to, if it does fix it, it's going to take a lot of years for them to get back together. It'll be a long time before they even try to meet again. And besides, you know, when Cindy's boss got punched, like, on their way out, he told Dean he was going to jail, so there is likely a bit of chance that when Dean gets back home, there's probably going to be cops waiting for him to have him arrested for assault. So there is also that factor too. Because I think like the receptionist mentions the cops were on their way. So I have a feeling like they'll probably get arrested when he gets back home for assault. Sorry, but I don't think there's any hope to fix this relationship. But that's how the movie ends. Now, would I have bad qualities? Yeah, sure. Like, I would say the story is kind of a bit slow, and it does kind of drag in some bits, and the movie randomly being rated NC-17 just because I had a few seconds of boobs. Like, wow, there's a lot of R-rated films with nudity for a few seconds, and slasher movies too. Like, can you imagine if almost every single movie that tried to have a shot of that got rated NC-17 for that reason alone? Can you imagine that? And the characters, yeah. As much as I can sympathize with them, and they're not really supposed to be likable people, but they don't really have too many likable things about them. Like, yeah, I do kind of sympathize with Dean a little bit more, but there is times when he does kind of get obnoxious, like the smoking and the drinking in the mornings and the oatmeal bits. And so those bits I can understand Cindy's frustration with. Because, like, and honestly, I'm kind of more, I'm not really on Cindy's side more. Because I understand she's kind of tired of her relationship and is annoyed with some of Dean's childish antics, but she doesn't really, to be fair, she doesn't really like that he paints houses for a living. Like, there's nothing wrong with painting houses for a living. I mean, painting houses actually is a hardworking and pretty well-paid job. Like, drinking and smoking in the morning, not a cool thing. But painting houses is still a job. High school degree or no high school degree. Like, now, okay, so take a look at me, for example. I finished high school? Yes. Did I finish college? No. I didn't, but I had reasons not to finish college. Look at me now. I have a YouTube channel with over 1,400 subscribers. I work at a meat store where I actually like being there. It's not something like working in an office or something, but the point is, it's still a job. It's still a pretty grown-up life. There's lots of people that don't finish high school, and even they're now successful people today. Not everybody finishes a certain bit of education, and they can still make success. They can still have a successful life. There's that. Other than those, I do enjoy Blue Valentine as this pretty well directed sad flick, but it's not really one I would really call worth rewatching. So in the end, if you aren't into relationships but love a well-directed nihilistic one, then I would totally watch or buy Blue Valentine for your collection, no doubt. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review of Blue Valentine. And if we're in Hungary Blue Valentine, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see a film that is more realistic about romantic relationships, then I would totally watch it by Blue Valentine for your collection, no doubt. And if you're wondering how to rank Blue Valentine, I would give Blue Valentine an 8 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That wraps up my review for Blue Valentine. Now I want to know in the comments down below for those who have seen the film, what you thought about it, whether you loved or hated it, or whether you think it's too depressing to enjoy. And until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.